Welcome to the Smithsonian Here to Career webinar series. My name is Eric Woodard, and I'm Director of Fellowships and Internships at the Smithsonian Institution. Thank you so much to all of those who are joining us today. I see there's a pretty good crowd of you. You are so smart to join something like this. Some of the best career advice there is, especially if you're interested in anything to do with data science. You know, data science, I mean, could there be a more important time for data than today? In preparing for this webinar, I was actually sort of thinking of the movie The Martian. You know, I don't want to spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it, but you know, that Matt Damon, he's on Mars, and to make a long story short, he you know, when it's all over, they ask him, well, you know, how do you survive? And he said, well, you know, you just got to do the math. You got to, you know, look at the data and solve the problem. And so I am sure that if we were with any of our esteemed panelists that we are talking to today on Mars, we would be just fine because they could look at the data and they could do the math. The way we'll do this is I'll be quiet here in just a second, and we'll have our panelists introduce themselves and just talk a little bit about their career paths. And then we'll open it up to questions. And if you don't see it already, there should be a Q&A module that lets you ask questions. And so what we'll do is make you live from there. So if you've got a microphone, make sure you turn it on. And just sort of like a radio show, we'll let you ask your questions live to our panelists. But again, I just want to thank everybody for joining and thank in advance our panelists, who I'll now ask to please introduce themselves, starting with Rebecca. What's your story? Tell us about yourself, if you would, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Dikow. I work for the Smithsonian Office of the Chief Information Officer. We have a small data science lab that we started about 4 years ago. That's part of the Office of the CIO. Before that, I was a postdoc at the Smithsonian. I was the first biodiversity genomics postdoctoral fellow, starting in, gosh, that was September 2012. And so I guess I'm kind of going back through my career. Before that, I did my PhD in evolutionary biology at the University of Chicago, at a joint program with the Field Museum. So I worked a lot at a museum in that time. And before that, I worked at the American Museum of Natural History in New York before I went to grad school. And that was in between my undergraduate and graduate degree. And I got my undergraduate degree in biology at Cornell University. I'm originally from New York. So yeah, so that's kind of the backwards way through my career. I started out as a biologist. I'm still a biologist, but we are using data science to look at Smithsonian data in lots of different ways. This started mostly with genomics data, but now we've moved into using machine learning on image data and also into large museum collections from other parts of the Smithsonian, so not just biology collections. So that's how I got to where I am, and yeah, happy to take your questions in a bit.
I think you're muted, Eric.
Sorry, you know, the famous post-COVID world faux pas. I was muted, sorry about that. Rebecca, thank you for all that. Mirian, if you would talk to us, please. What's your story?
So hi, my name is Mirian Tsuchiya. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Data Science Lab. I work with Rebecca. I've been there for a little bit more than 2 years, but my story at Smithsonian is quite long. I've been an intern, a predoctoral fellow, and I'm a postdoc. And my connection to Smithsonian goes back to 2009, which is a long time if you think about it. My undergrad, I'm originally from Brazil. My undergrad degree is in biology. I did a master's in zoology, and my PhD was in environmental science and policy at George Mason. So you can see that everything is a little different, not exactly the same, but everything biology. And the uniting thing among all my degrees is that I was always very interested in genetics. So being interested in genetics and then transitioning to genomics during my PhD was what really brought me into data science. So my area of specialty is genomics and bioinformatics. But like Rebecca said, I'm also interested in all questions data science, and I'm excited to learn new techniques and apply to different kinds of data sets. So yeah, I think that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And so, Mike, lay it on us, man. Tell the people what they want to know.
Okay, well, my background actually isn't very dissimilar from Rebecca or Mirian's. I also have a background in biology. My undergrad degree is from Virginia Tech. And then I went to grad school to get a master's degree in bioinformatics at VCU, which is in Richmond. And one of the requirements of that master's program was to get an internship in the field. And I did my internship at the Smithsonian over the summer, went back for one more semester, kept working on the side with the Smithsonian. And then as soon as I graduated, I started working full time. And I guess I don't like job interviews since I've been within the Smithsonian since then. But I only joined the data science lab, I guess a little over, I don't know. You see, I'm bad at math on the spot. And also I don't know what month
It's like
or year it is now.
a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago. Yep. But I had been working in the office like right next to Mirian and Rebecca at the Natural History Museum. And I guess got connected with the data science lab because I was helping out with some programming training courses at the Natural History Museum. And a big part of the data science lab now is to train people around the Smithsonian on different data science skills, because you've got the experts in the world in so many different subjects. And if you give them a little bit of data science skills, it just kind of makes them so much better at the work that they do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So remember, guys, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them, and we'll ask our experts to weigh in. But I have like 1,000 questions after hearing that. My first, well, I guess it's one sort of a two-part question is, one, why are you all you guys biologists? I mean, I am too. I actually did my undergrad biology, but why are y'all biologists? And then two, sort of related to that, you know, and this is probably the most unhealthiest habit one could have, but I'm addicted to that John Hopkins, you know, chart that shows, you know, all those, you know, there's so many grim numbers. You know, we all hope they go down, but you know, I'm addicted to that data, and so I'm just curious, you know, one, why are you biologists, and two, what do you think the way, you know, without making, going to put you on the spot in terms of politics, and you know if we're not making any kind of official Smithsonian statements here, but what do you think about the data that's coming, and what's your take on it? And whoever, Rebecca, what do you think? Lay it on us.
Sure. Well, I think the simple answer to why we're all biologists is that at the Smithsonian, kind of the first kind of big data that was being generated was genomics data. So, you know, biology has kind of, well, maybe that's not fair. So the Astrophysical Observatory up in Cambridge has been generating big data for a very long time. But for biologists, this idea of big data and computation is pretty new. And so over the past 10 years or so, the Smithsonian's been realizing that they need to invest in the kinds of, you know, expertise in computing, and not just in natural history, which we have this amazing history of that. So I think that's kind of why genomics was the entryway to a centralized data science group at the Smithsonian. But now that there's more digitized collections data from across the institution, thanks to the Digitization Program Office and also the individual units, you know, there's just and also advances in machine learning and the kinds of algorithms and technologies that we use. There's just so much more opportunity now to do this kind of work. But yeah, I'll let somebody else take the COVID question.
Yeah, so you Martians, what do you think? How do we survive? What's your take, Mike?
Oh, geez. Okay. So I guess I would say that the one thing that I see that is very familiar to me is in the modeling that we see. It's fluctuating a lot because it's all based on the data that is out there. And something that we as data scientists know very well is that your models are only going to be as good as the data that they're built on. So I've seen a lot of interesting work recently, just kind of looking at the trying to compute how many actual coronavirus deaths have been occurring over the last few months by looking at the overall death rates compared to the official stamped with approval coronavirus diagnoses. And I think that's really interesting work, and something that we're used to dealing with a lot is kind of inferring things based on the limited amount of data that we have about a certain topic.
Yeah, yeah. Mirian, anything to add? It's okay if not. I'm looking at whether you're unmuting yourselves. That's how I know if you want to talk. It's okay if not, because you're okay. Okay. Well, one thing I will say, in terms of policymakers, I think Mike, or I think it was you, but one of you just said it, data's got teeth. So, you can be people who get all up there and say, oh, I think this, I think that. But if you can show the math, if you can show the data, that tends to be very super persuasive. And I think this isn't just me. I think sort of in a post-COVID world, data is even going to have more teeth. I tend to be somebody that likes to be persuasive just based on my charm, and sometimes I don't use a lot of data. I think I will be less influential in a post-COVID world because data, or I'll have to show my math more probably. But we do have a question from Matthew Arsenault, and Matthew, you were very kind to send me a question, which I really appreciate. And so if we can hear you, let's see if we can hear you. Matthew, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Hey, thanks so much. If you would ask your question, please.
Sure. Funny enough, I'm actually a biologist by training also, but I've moved on to geology and now to data science. So I come at it very much from the generalist perspective, I guess. I've been looking through the website looking for internships and fellowships. And of course, everything's organized by museums and offices. Are most of the data science internships through the CIO office, or are they dispersed through other museums? I didn't find an easy way to search and find them.
Yeah, so we're pretty new to taking interns and fellows. So, as opposed to the individual museums who have a long history of that, we do things kind of a combination of ways. Sometimes we'll have interns or fellows that are kind of joint between our office and the office of the CIO and then another museum. So in that case, you could apply through the museum and then kind of come at it that way. But we do have our own dedicated fellows and interns as well. We've generally kind of put out a call when we're looking for them. We're not part of the kind of overall fellowship program at the Smithsonian. It's pretty complicated to navigate. I totally understand that. But feel free to send any of us an email if you're interested in. We currently have one pre-doctoral fellow who is at the University of Maryland, who we have joint between SCBI, the Conservation Biology Institute, and our team. So that would be kind of a graduate student level internship. Unfortunately for this summer, we've decided not to have interns. We had a number of people kind of lined up, but because of the uncertainties with us not knowing when we can get back to our offices, we've put that on hold.
Yeah, I saw the announcement that came out. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And Matthew, I would just say too, and maybe as our panelists can dive into this, I'd say two things. Is one, rather than even looking at listed opportunities, and again, this is sort of with the caveat of we're in COVID world now, so things are a little bit messed up until we sort of hit a new normal. But if you identify somebody at the Smithsonian who's doing stuff that you're interested in and something that you think the world needs, reach out to them because they may have an opportunity that's not listed. The other thing I'd say too is, is the way our stuff is listed. You're right; it's sort of hard. Sometimes it's sort of the cross-functional stuff, like data science. But look at the units that you think might have it, and that could be, our panelists will correct me, but someplace like natural history or the astrophysical observatory, or, really, any unit is going to be dealing with big data, but especially the natural science units are probably going to tend to have more. I don't know, Mirian and Mike, am I telling the truth there? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to point out that even though a listing for an internship or any position may not even specify the term data science,
it's true.
You can really make any position into a data science position if you bring those skills to the data that you're working with. We kind of have to convince some of the people we work with that they have big data, that they're able to use data science in their research. They may not realize it themselves or even know of the term data science.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool, very cool. So we also had a question from Jawalja. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Jawalja, are you there? Can we hear you? Hello, do you have a microphone? I see you have a question. Jawalja, we can't hear you, but I'll ask your question if you'd like. I'm going to leave you so you can talk. So if we hear your voice, we'll know you're there. But Jawal just said, I'm a computational science grad from George Mason, interested in digital humanities. I'm going to be working. Yeah, Jawal, are you there?
Hello.
There you are. There you are. Lay it on us. We can hear you now.
Sorry, I couldn't figure this out.
That's okay. You're in good company. Welcome to the new world. Talk to us.
Hi, I'm really glad to see you all. I'm a computational sciences grad student from George Mason, and I'm interested in digital humanities research. And after a long time of looking around, I found this internship at National Gallery of Art, and I even got accepted. So I'm really super excited about that. But yeah, I just wanted to know what you would say about making the most of this experience.
Yeah, thanks. Mirian, what do you think? What do you think? How can somebody make the most of the experience?
So I think that the most important thing is to really ask questions all the time, and don't be afraid to ask questions to your mentors, to your peers. Everybody in general in those groups, they're very happy to have you helping with projects and are willing to answer your questions and help you navigate your internship the best way possible. Also, really, I think it's everything I'm gonna end up with ask questions, because sometimes nobody's expecting you to know everything, right? You're there to learn a new skill, and everybody's there willing to teach you that skill. So go for it. Try to experience as many different parts of a project that you can. So let's say that you were assigned a small part of the project, you're going to work on this specific data set, but maybe there is something that you could do on a different one. As long as it's not too much for you to do, it's as long as it's something that will bring you pleasure, try to diversify your experience as much as you can so you can make the most of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. Mike, Rebecca, anything more to add?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just wanted to point out that a big aspect of data science that they're trying to emphasize a lot now is reproducibility. So as an intern, you're going to be working on a project that has an end date. And if you're able to list exactly how you went about all of your analyses, you'll be doing yourself a service because you can share that in your portfolio. You'll be doing your mentor a service because if you have moved on by a certain point, they'll get to know how you went about the work that you did, and it's just a great skill to have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks so much. So Jenny Zhang, it sounds like you had a question along the similar lines, but if Jenny, if you're there, talk to us.
Oh, hi. Can you hear
Hi
me?
there. Lay it on us.
Yes, I have a question about what I can do for Smithsonian. I have a background in chemistry and stats. So I see on the website that you guys are mainly looking for like digital humanity and like hardcore data scientists. And I'm wondering like what a chemist or like a chemistry oriented statistician can do for the organization.
Thanks, Jenny. Guys, what do you think?
I mean, we definitely use statistics all the time, and I would say probably every museum, every unit has some people working with data that they need to analyze statistically. In terms of chemistry, the Museum Conservation Institute, I think, employs a number of chemists when they're looking at actual physical conservation of collections objects. There's also, I mean, at the Natural History Museum, there's, parts of mineral sciences and geology that might also be interesting. So yeah, I would look at maybe some of the individual units and what their needs are in those areas.
Yeah. Mike, Mirian, anything more to add? Rebecca raises a really good point, and Jenny, thank you so much for your question. One of the things that I constantly find in the applications I see is people sort of skip that part about what does the person or organization you're applying to need, right? What does the universe need? What's in demand? This is really, really important. It's the secret to so many people's success is, and if you can kind of turn it, instead of thinking, well, what am I interested in and what do I want to do, and flip that more towards what does the world need, right? What does the organization need? And how what I'm interested in can support that. That is a real game changer. I could be wrong, but I've seen that work for others. So Mary Angel, Villa Obos, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
We sure can. Lay it on us if you would. What's your question?
So it is kind of related to what was just asked. So I am getting my PhD in the humanities, in ethnomusicology, so different from biology. But so right now I'm looking at, careers and just like trying to plan ahead about what I'm gonna do after my PhD, especially in times like this. And so I guess my question is, I would love to hear from you if you know how the humanities, what can we bring to data science, if at all, if there's any demand for people like us, and if you have any comments.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Miriam. What do you think? How does data science relate to the humanities? How does that work?
I'm sure that Rebecca will be able to give more information, but I'm going to talk about some of the projects we have going on now. We have a project with the Smithsonian American Women History Initiative. So that's one project that's associated with social science and humanities. There are projects going on with the American History Museum and trying to understand the history of objects and exploring texts and documents and things like that. So that's very far from our usual biology and genomics. And those are for sure contributions that can be made by anybody in the field. But I just want to say one more thing, is that somebody who asked before about us looking for hardcore data scientists, I would definitely not define myself as one. And I don't think that's exactly what it is. Data science is more about, in my opinion, my particular view is about you liking to troubleshoot things and being good in the process of finding answers to new questions or creative ways of dealing with big data. So you don't necessarily need to be a hardcore mathematician or a computer scientist. Anybody can be a data scientist if you have the will and you put up the time and effort to learn the skill.
That's nice. Humanities and data. Rebecca, Mike, anything more to say? It's okay if not. Rebecca, you're looking a little still there. I want to make sure we may have an issue with Rebecca's link, but she'll come back. Mike, talk to us.
I thought she was just very composed.
I'm back.
We'll find
Can you
her.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just
Okay.
fine. It's
I'm frozen.
Yeah, your video's frozen. If you monkey with it, it's fine. But we'll talk about it. We'll come back to you, Rebecca. Don't worry, we won't lose you. Go ahead, Mike.
Gosh, I forget what I was going to say now. But I wanted to actually give a call out to the Smithsonian Open Access Program that was just rolled out at the end of February, I believe it was, where a huge portion of all the digitized records that the Smithsonian has across all of its units were made completely open access and available to anyone online. And you can find this just by Googling Smithsonian Open Access. So that's a huge data set from multiple different fields. There's art data, there's historical objects in there, lots of biological specimen data in there that you can basically play with on your own. And because it's open access, you can kind of share how you interpreted those, and you can even sell derivatives because of the way that it's put out there for the public.
That's great. That's great. Rebecca, we can see you now. We'll make sure you're off mute. You are. Yeah. Anything more to add about that sort of humanities and data science?
I think there's just so much opportunity. You know, it's kind of computational data in the humanities is still really new, and we're still understanding, I think, how to do it well, how to use these kind of new machine learning algorithms ethically, how to deal with bias that we know is in our data sets. These are really open questions and really important questions for us going forward using these technologies at the Smithsonian. And I think it really takes a very, you know, inclusive group of people with many different skills and subject matter expertise to really solve these questions. So I think everyone's welcome for sure.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you know, just a little secret for those of you who were smart enough to zoom into this. You know, nothing gets like review committees more excited than the cross-disciplinary stuff. So you know the times where you can, you know, cross the wires of like data science with something completely unexpected, that gets people excited. You know, the other thing too is sort of the translational piece, in the sense that you can have all the data in the world, but if you don't know how to translate that or communicate that into a way that resonates with the universe in the sense that makes an impact, you're out of luck. And sometimes you need perspectives from the humanities and people that understand culture, and not that these folks don't, these guys obviously do, but having those values, just what Rebecca said. I don't need to explain any further, but that, I just know from looking at review committees, that's huge. That's huge. I'm paying too close attention to our panel here. I'm dropping the ball on my moderating duties. But Buddy Bernard, I love the question that you raised. Buddy, if you're there, can we hear you? And if you would, ask your question. You may be muted, Buddy. There you are.
Hey,
can we hear?
How are you?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Go ahead, please.
Great. I'm a recent data science boot camp graduate, so I'm very not a data science expert in any way, but learning. And I was wondering if there's any tools that I should be practicing with that you guys are using on a day-to-day basis. We get taught basic Python and, you know, some statistic tools and some computer vision tools, but I was wondering if there's anything you guys are using that's that I should be learning with.
Love it. What's your secret tools, guys? What is it? What are they? Great question, buddy.
All right, I'll go ahead and jump in and answer that. If you know Python, you're in a great place there. It seems to be split between the researchers at the Smithsonian, between people who know Python, which to people who don't know, Python is a programming language. And there are great libraries out there that help you with do data science tasks. And the other language that a lot of people use is called R. So if you know Python well, you're in great shape.
Cool. Any other secret tool?
You're probably very familiar already with Jupyter Notebooks and GitHub, but you know, those are tools that we use in our day-to-day, but also teach to others. So having experience with those is really helpful.
That's great. That's great. So guys, I believe it or not, we are like almost out of time. We'll take one last question. Claire Brennan, Claire Bresnan rather, are you there?
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Claire. Nice to meet you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm an intern at SCBI. I'm going to Montana soon to do some bison behavioral observations and work with camera trap data. And did one day-long R workshop at SCBI, but I was wondering if there are any resources through the Smithsonian or your departments that interns in other departments can access, or if not, if you have recommendations on good resources for R or ArcGIS.
Thanks, Claire. Any secret data science resources that people at the Smithsonian or others may not know about?
So I'm gonna, jump in and answer that, because the course that you may have taken at SCBI is called a carpentries course. That's the model that we use to teach data science workshops. And there is an R and a Python GIS course that's out there that teaches you how to work with GIS data. So if you just Google data carpentry, GIS. You can find that.
Nice, nice. Any other resources to share? It's okay if not. No. All right, cool. Well, guys, I just want to thank everybody who joined in this workshop. You know, I wish when I was at your stage in your career that I had been smart enough to tune into more things like this. So, but I'm not as smart as you, so I have to live vicariously through you. And I'm definitely not as smart as our distinguished panelists today, who I'd like to thank for their valuable time and expertise. We'll have this posted on our Facebook page and also on the Smithsonian Office of Fellowship and Internships web page blog. Again, my name is Eric Woodard. I'm Director of Fellowships and Internships at the Smithsonian. And on behalf of the Smithsonian Institution, we'd like to thank everybody for joining and wish you a very good day. Thanks very much, everybody.
All right, bye.
Thank you.